All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Steve Tischer with American Consulting, and today we're going to be going over the Bluebeam Overview Session 2. Now, in this session, we're going to be covering the top drop-down menus up here and all the tools and processes you can find up in here. And then we're also going to be covering some of these side quick access toolbars over here. And lastly, we're going to finish up with the markup list and what this is and what all you can do in here. So to start off with, we're going to go up here in these top drop-down menus. Now the way they have these organized is pretty logical in the sense that if you want to do something to the file itself, you're going to find that in the File tab here. If you want to do something to the document, whether it's inserting pages into the document or reducing the file size of the document, it's going to be found in here. Same thing with tools and window. If you need to change your window or how you're viewing things, you're going to change some settings over here. So we'll start off over here in the File tab. Now here's where you can do different things like create a new PDF, open an existing one. You can start a new studio project if you wanted to in here. The one thing that I would say I probably use the most in this File tab here though is this combine function here. So what this is a way to combine different PDFs into one PDF without having to click and copy thumbnails like we were talking about in the previous session and dragging them over in the thumbnail tab here. So this combine PDF files is just a dialog that opens up here, and you can add open files if you want to. So if say I already had the files that I need to combine open here, then I can just say add open files. And it'll add those files that I have open in here. If you don't want to open up these particular files and combine these files, then what you could do is just say add, and it'll prompt you to locate those files. In my case here, I'm connected to ProjectWise, so first it's going to prompt me from this, but you guys won't normally see this because I don't think you use ProjectWise, so it'll just probably go to your normal web or File Explorer browser here. And then you just find the files you wanted to combine. In this case, I'll just combine these two files here. Open them, and the include bookmarks is checked here. So if there are any bookmarks that are existing in these files, then what that'll do is that'll combine those bookmarks and maintain those in the combined file for you. And you just hit OK, and what that does is that creates a separate document itself, separate from the original two files, and it just names it document 1 temporarily, and then you can just file save as and name it to whatever it is you need. And then over here in the bookmarks, you can see these are some of the bookmarks that already existed in the files that I combined. And by default, it'll at least create bookmarks for the file names that you combine. So the two files that I combined were this reduced file size PDF and the summary report example plans PDF. And it automatically created bookmarks based on those file names, so I can jump to the different spots in the combined document here. Another item that I'll frequently go to and use in this file drop down here is the email button. If I have a PDF open that I'm going to share with somebody and I just want to email it to them really quickly, then you can just make sure you have that file open, go File, Email. And off my screen here, what that did was that brought up an email message in Outlook and attached the file to it. I'll drag it over here so you can see it. So just like this, now you can type in the name of the person you want to email to and just email. So this is just an alternative to, instead of starting a new message in Outlook and then going File, Attach, and finding the file. If you already have it open, you can just click File, Email, and send it to people that way. Edit dropdown, this is mostly your normal things you would see in an edit type of button dropdown here. The undo and redo are probably the most frequently used in this tab, and the shortcuts are the same as they always are for most other programs, Control Z, Control Y. And there's some other things in here in terms of the selection of your cursor, but again, these tools like the pan and select, which just changes how your cursor interacts, those are things that are also located down here as well. One thing that I will bring your attention to in that edit dropdown though is when you want to edit PDF content over here. So you can take snapshots of the content on this PDF here. with this Shift G button, which is also a shortcut over here in your quick access toolbar, the snapshot button. Now the snapshot button, I'll kind of jump over to that tool over here just because it's in that drop-down menu as well to show you the difference. But the regular snapshot button, if I had a PDF with some markups on it, to say this one here, I have some clouds and stuff in this. If I just use this regular snapshot tool, what this is going to do is kind of create an intelligent screenshot, if you want to call it, of the content that's on here. But there's some advantages to using the snapshot tool in that it recognizes the content on the PDF. Whereas if I were just to use, the normal snippet tool or snag it tool to take a quick screenshot of something, that's just an image. When I do use the snapshot tool over here in Bluebeam, when I take that snapshot of something and say I go and paste it on another PDF, in this case I'm just going to create a new one real quick and paste it on here. That's not just a dumb image that doesn't know anything about what the line work is in here. So if I were to turn on my content snaps down here, and I wanted to draw a line, you can see my cursor here. It's snapping this to this line. It recognizes the line work here in this snapshot. So that's a big difference between normal snippet or snapshot versus this grab tool, the snapshot tool within Bluebeam here. So you can do this, and then you can even scale or apply a page scale in using the measure tool, and just say, okay, I know that this dimension is 7'6", and then you can quickly start drawing to scale in a PDF environment as opposed to a CAD environment if you just want to do a quick rough sketch of something. Now the difference between the regular snapshot tool over here and this snapshot content tool is the snapshot content tool will not grab markups on the page here. So if I go back to that page here, and instead of using the normal snapshot tool, I go to edit PDF content and snapshot content, which is the same shortcut except it's just Shift G instead of G. So I click on that, and I'll do the same area here. And then when I go and paste that into this document here, notice it doesn't grab all of those clouds that were markups in there. So the PDF snapshot content tool will not grab those markups on there. So if you just want to grab a quick snapshot and you don't want to necessarily whether you want to split the screen vertically or horizontally, there's a
Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Yeah, he fixes his Control Shift F8. It's not working.
Can anyone hear me?
No. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. How long was I out for there? I didn't realize I was out.
A couple minutes.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. Well, I'll back up then. So what was the last tool or thing that you could hear me talking about?
Snap to.
Yeah, the snap to content.
Okay, so you got the two differences between the snapshot tool and then the snapshot content down here. You got kind of the difference between those two things. The main difference is the regular snapshot tool over here will grab markups along with your content, and the snapshot content tool will ignore the markups on the page, and you won't have to bring over that markup content. That's the biggest difference. But that snapshot tool is, like I said before, it's handy because it'll actually grab the line work on this page and recognize that in a document like this. So this top one here, this is one where I used the regular snapshot tool, so it grabbed that markup that was on that page. And when I used the snapshot content tool, it ignored that markup and just gave me this. And like I said before too, the neat thing about this is, the snapshot recognizes the line work. So my cursor is snapping to these lines here, even though it's like a snapshot. It recognizes the geometry or the line work in this page here, so I can use that to measure and quickly do a rough sketch to scale of something in here if I didn't want to go into AutoCAD or MicroStation or something like that. Is there any questions on those first two tabs?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right, going back into the view panel here. So the view panel, the main things that I go in here for are going to be the different ways you can split your screens. So I'll just kind of jump back here. The ways you can split your screens are vertical and horizontal, and there's a limit to how many times you can do it. I think it's like 16 times or something like that. But I mean, if you split it 16 times, then you're going to have pretty small little windows to view your PDF in. So most of the time, I'll just split it vertically one time. And those buttons are also shortcutted down here, so you don't have to always go into that view split screen. And they also have keyboard shortcuts too. So if you wanted to split this new document here vertically, then you just click that little button there or hit Control 2. And what that does is that'll make a copy of that tab that you were viewing and put it over in this second window over here. Now, if I want to go back and compare that to the old document, in this case, I just click on the old tab here. So now I'm looking at my old document and my new document. So this could be a case where maybe this was a submittal of some kind, and this was a revision to that submittal based on comments you made, and you want to compare these two documents side by side. Then this is the best way to do it, to do that vertical split. And along with that vertical split, what I like to do when I'm comparing two documents is turn on this synchronize views. So what this does is this will synchronize the views on the left and the right. So there's two different options in here. There's synchronize the document, which I'll use if the documents are the same number of pages and the order of the content is the same. So if there weren't any major changes to the document in terms of sheets were added or pages were added and things were removed, then I'll do the document. But if, say, this revision over here, maybe they added a page and it's 10 pages and versus the 9 pages of the original, then maybe I'll go in here and I'll just say do the page sync. So I'll go and start with the document one just to kind of show you what that is. So I'm simply going to zoom in and out with my middle mouse wheel here. And when I do that, actually, there's a good example. So you know that that's not turned on unless it's blue. So I forgot to turn it on there. All I did was I adjusted the setting to document, but I forgot to turn it on. So let's go ahead and click that button and it's blue. Again, that's another thing too to note, that anything that's a button in Bluebeam, it's on if it's blue. So you know this is on now. So now when I scroll in here, my middle mouse wheel on my right screen, it's going to automatically follow and do the same thing on my left screen. So this is super convenient when you have comments on this left original document or something like that, and you want to go and see if those comments were addressed. Now you can have your two documents synchronized so that you're looking at the same spots on the document at the same time. And this also includes like page scrolling, so I'll just kind of scroll down page by page. And the two documents will just sync up together. So the document sync will control the page scrolling, the zooming, and everything here. So this is a really, really handy tool to use when you're going to be comparing two documents together. Now, if say they were different pages, different number of pages, which happens a lot of times, two different things I'll do. I'll either just keep the documents the way they are, and then change it to a page synchronization, which means it'll synchronize, but only by the page. So my zooming and panning are synchronized. But if I were to go up one page or to page 2 on this document, it's not going to automatically go to page 2 on this one. So I have to manually go to page 2 on this one. And this, again, is used more so for when there's different number of pages in a document. Another thing that I'll do if I want to use that document sync to just make my life a little easier going from page to page, say I had a page that was just inserted in this original document here. So this one here, this page 1, it was there on both documents, but sheet 2, this didn't exist in this particular document. So I just added a blank page in here to kind of account or be a dummy placeholder in the document so that when I scrolled through and I used my document sync, the documents were still synced up overall. So you can just kind of add a dummy blank page in a document. You can kind of see it here in the thumbnails here. This is just my little placeholder, and this was simply to make it so that all the other pages in this document would be synced up when I use that document sync versus the page sync. Any questions on the document split views or synchronizing documents? Can anyone still hear me?
Can all stay here?
Yeah,
All right.
questions.
Good to go. Another thing you can do, instead of doing that Control 2, which makes a copy of that tab, if you hit Control 1, you can see what it did is it just extracted that tab and put it over here so that it's not a copy of a tab from this window, but it simply just moved the tab over here. And then you can just click and drag that tab back over here if you want to make it into that one view again. All right, so some other things that are in the View tab here. If you want to view your ruler on the pages, you can do that. So that will put kind of like the ruler we normally see in Microsoft Word in the top and sides of the Bluebeam. In addition to that, you have full screen crosshairs. A lot of times it's convenient to see where you're at on the screen here, where my mouse is at and where that is in comparison to over on this side. So sometimes it's just nice to have a full screen crosshair to line things up when you're working in a document. You can show a grid if you wanted to, and you can adjust the grid in your preferences. So in this case here, these grids are just dots that are start on a certain point of the document and go up and to the left or up and to the right in a certain pattern, and you can control the pattern. So the 0, 0 dot you can control would be on like the bottom left of your document, and you can say make me a grid of 1 inch by 1 inch, and then you can start snapping to that grid if you wanted to. So you can start creating line work and snapping to the grid points on the lines here. And all those buttons too, all like the snap to or turning on your grid and snapping to grid points, those are located down here. Another couple buttons down here, they're useful to snap to content. So with these turned off, when I create if I want to draw a line and I want to snap to something, let me get to something that makes a little bit more sense here. So I'll go, let's see, right here. So if I wanted to snap to, say, the front face of this end bench or something here, I can't physically snap to that right now, but if I turn on that snap to content here, now it's going to grab that line, and I'm going to be able to snap right to that line. The other one here is snap to markup, kind of self-explanatory. If I were to make another line here, and I wanted to snap to this line that I just made, I can't do that. But when I turn on the snap to markup, now it's going to recognize that markup line, and I can snap specifically to that line. And these two commands are helpful when you want to make like I said before, make a kind of a rough sketch on an existing PDF, and you don't necessarily want to go into AutoCAD or whatever CAD platform you're using. You can just do it kind of quickly here in Bluebeam. Another thing you can do that's kind of neat in the View tab here, say you have a drawing that there's a lot of different line weights. And when I say line weights, I mean line thicknesses. You can actually disable line weights here in Bluebeam. And I think this will be a reasonable example. So let's kind of look and focus on this area here. And when I go to View, Disable Line Weights, you can see it makes all the line weights the same size. And this can be useful sometimes when you have an AutoCAD file that's you're bringing into a different platform like MicroStation or vice versa, or just for some reason when something got printed, the line weights were huge or they're blocking something else, then you can disable those line weights. Now when I turn it back on or turn that tool off, you'll see this line weight here go back to the normal thickened line weight. And that's not permanent. That's just a setting you can have in here in the way you're viewing the document. Any questions in the view drop down here? All right, moving on. We'll go into the. Oh, was there a question?
No, I was just saying there wasn't.
Okay. All right, document tab. So now this is the tab where there's a lot of neat tools inside here and things that we use a lot. So this is going to be where you're going to do some of your normal document functions in the sense of, if I want to rotate pages, I can go ahead and do that here. And you can, they're pretty smart in the way they do like the rotate pages and a lot of these other functions in here where I can say just the selected page, just the current one. A lot of times we'll get documents where some reason the odd pages or the even pages are not rotated correctly. So you can actually tell Bluebeam only rotate the evens or the odds. You can tell it to recognize whether a page is landscape and rotate only the landscape pages to be portrait. And you can also do the direction here and how you want to rotate it. You can also notice too, it's not just one document here. This happens to be the document that I had open when I said document rotate, but I can add a lot more PDFs if I wanted to. So you can rotate pages in, multiple PDFs, 10, 20, 30 PDFs all at the same time in one shot here, which is kind of nice. You don't have to go into this dialog every time you need to do that. Other things in this document tab here, extract pages. If I want to insert pages into the document, you can go in here and do it right here. Replace pages, delete pages. And the nice thing about all these drop-down menus is you can see the keyboard shortcuts. So, I've been using this long enough to where I have most of these memorized now. So instead of having to go to document, rotate pages, I just hit Control Shift R on my keyboard. Or if I want to delete a page, I just hit Control Shift D. So you can kind of teach yourself those keyboard shortcuts if you pay attention in this drop-down menu here. Now, headers and footers. So this is where you can add headers and footers to a document like the way you would in Microsoft Word. I'll just kind of go through one quick example here. It's pretty self-explanatory in the sense that your header is the first one here, and you got the header left, center, right, footer, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right, and you can control the margins of your headers and footers here. You can save these settings, so if you want to use these settings in the future, you can save these and just load a settings in the future. All kinds of page numbers you can choose from and formatting for the page numbers. So you can pretty much do whatever you want to do in terms of formatting for the headers and footers here. Now, compare documents. So these two tools here, compare documents and overlay pages, are probably two of my favorite tools that Bluebeam has. And in the last session, when I was talking about how this program, Bluebeam, was made for our industry, the architectural engineering and construction industry, this is a prime example of a workflow that they saw was a real pain in the butt for us in the past, and they made a tool specifically for it. So compare documents, what this will do is this will compare two documents. It'll look at them, electronically, scanning pixel by pixel, and you can kind of control the accuracy or the precision on which that it scans the documents. It'll look at those two documents and it'll actually cloud any differences that it finds for you and apply those in a new document. So we'll go ahead and do that here. So again, that's just under document, compare documents. And document A is always going to be the original file. So I'm going to go compare. I'm going to look at the old file here. And then document B is going to be the document that the clouds get put onto. So I wanted to put the clouds on the new document. And you can go into advanced and play around. This is where I was talking about the settings in terms of how precise is it going to be? Is it going to like literally look if there's a single pixel different on the PDF? Will it mark that, or will you care if it's 3 pixels or 5 pixels off? You can play around at the settings up here to get the sensitivity of that. So I'm going to leave it the way it is by default here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And actually, one other thing I'll kind of point to If for some reason, these documents were different sizes between two versions, which sometimes happens, maybe one got put onto, an 11 by 17, and now this one is like a 16.5 by 10.6, you can actually pick common points in those two documents to manually align them, and it'll go through and kind of scale and create that imaginary document to compare to the original one for you. Because if you have two documents that were, everything was shifted over because of a page size change, then it would just cloud the entire page. But if you go in here and play with the manual alignment settings, then you can actually get those two documents to compare correctly for you. So I'll go ahead and hit OK, and I'll say, actually I gotta go back and undo some of the changes I did to this document first. And I'll go back in here, document, compare documents. Again, the document A is going to be the original, document B is going to be the new where the clouds get put onto, and I'll hit OK. And what this will do is this will create a copy of that new document over here. Actually, here it is right here. And so this one is going to be the new document where something changed, and this is going to be the old one on the right here. So, and it automatically turns on that synchronize views button down here too. So now I can just simply go and zoom in on this here and see, okay, well, what changed in this B6-2 compared to the old one? Okay, well, we used to have some stars here, and now those stars were taken away. And I mean, this thing, like I said, it'll go down pixel by pixel and find things that changed in a document. So, I mean, even just the initials or the date of a checked by here, it used to be 11-17, now it's 2-18. So this is a massive time saver if you ever have to compare plan sets or documents of any kind, from one version to another, or if you just want to use it as a check, along the way to just make sure that the things that were supposed to get changed did get changed. It's a phenomenal tool for doing that, and it really saves a lot of time from the old school method where we just had, original document, hard copy, and then the new document side by side, and we're literally just doing a page flip to compare and try to find what differences there were. And it saves a lot of time when you're doing that. Any questions on this document comparison tool? Oh, okay. So the other companion tool that is similar to the document comparison would be the document overlay. So what this will do is this will take all the content on the old document and put it on a layer, and maybe it'll be I think it's a red layer by default, and it'll take all the content on the new document and put that on a green layer, and then it overlaps them and puts them on top of each other so you can see sort of a more graphical view of what the changes were. Pretty similar in how it works. So let's go ahead and overlay pages, and I'm going to say the old I want to be the red, and I'm going to say I want all the pages in that document. And for the new, it'll be green, and I'll just say all the pages again. And the default colors are good because when these are overlapped, it'll appear black. So you know that anything that's black in terms of content was not changed, but if it's red or green, you see red or green, then you'll know that something changed. So I'll hit OK. And it's just going through and do this. It's pretty quick when you think about what it's doing in terms of grabbing all the content, applying them to a layer, changing their color, and then putting it on a combined document for you. So here we go. Now we zoom in here, you can see everything that it looks black. It means that the red and the green, which is the old and the new, are overlapped perfectly. But when you come over here, you can see a better graphical representation of what changed in this document here. Now it can be kind of jumbled here in this case where there's things on top of each other. It might be hard to see what was what. So that's when you go over to that layers tab, and you can see here in the layer, I can turn on and off the layers. So right now I turned off the new and I'm looking at the old. So I can see the old was this, star B6-2. And then the new one, those stars are gone. So this is just another way to kind of compare documents and graphically see what the differences were between them. Now this page here, this sheet didn't exist in the old, so that's why you're only seeing green on this one here. And same with this, all the line work, you can see this was an old line, this was an old line, these are new lines, and so on and so forth. Now, sometimes what I like to do is actually combine these two tools to make what I call an overlay comparison. And I already have one kind of created here, but in this case, what I did was I ran the overlay function first, and then I ran the document comparison. So now you get clouds and you get that red and green overlay here. So I can get those clouds to quickly see what changed. So I know that something changed over here, and then I can go and turn off the new so I can see what the old was, and then turn off the old so I can see what the new was. Any questions on these compare documents or overlay page tools? No? Okay. The next one down here, the OCR. So the OCR is short for optical character recognition. This is used for scanned PDFs. Now what we call those raster PDFs, which are kind of a raster PDF is just like almost like an image, a virtual image, just put on an electronic blank piece of paper, right? There's no intelligence to it in the sense that you can't select text or snap to line content or anything like that if you had your snap tools on down here. So what OCR will do is it'll go into a scan document and scan that document and make the text searchable. So it'll add some intelligence to your document in terms of it'll recognize the text. Now, it doesn't necessarily make like line work snappable, but it will make your document searchable with the text. Now, it's only as good as the quality of the document. So if you have like just a really bad scanned PDF that's really grainy, it might be 50% efficient in how it finds things and the characters that it recognizes. If you have a halfway decent scan document, though, it does a pretty darn good job in terms of identifying the correct alphanumerical characters from the scan document and kind of making those things searchable. Reduce file size here. This is one I like to do on all my documents. Now, PDFs can get really bloated and the information that's kind of just embedded or hidden in the background. So I like to reduce my file size on pretty much all the documents that I have, especially ones that are over, say 5 to 10 megabytes. Anything over that size, then I like to reduce the file size, especially if I'm, sending them to somebody through an email or something like that. That's a pretty simple tool here. You just hit File, Reduce File Size, and you select which documents you want. Again, you can actually reduce the file size of multiple documents at once if you wanted to, just simply by hitting the Add Files button or the Open Files or folder. You can add an entire folder worth of documents, and it'll dump all those files in that folder into here. So you can reduce, 20, 30, as many PDFs as you want. You can reduce all those file sizes at once. Here they kind of have a little slider bar for quality versus compression. I like to leave it right in the middle where it's at, and it's almost impossible to notice any reduction in quality, to the human eye when you just leave it right where it's at. So this is, if I wanted to really, really compress it further, the quality might not be as good. It might get grainy in a sense. But if you leave it right here, then it'll do a good job of reducing the file size, and it will keep your quality, just as good as it was before. Flatten. So flattening, what that kind of does is sometimes when a good way to describe it is sometimes when you have a bunch of markups on a document and you don't want those markups to be selectable, then what we do is we'll print that PDF to another PDF to kind of embed those markups on the document. So that's the same thing that flatten does. So I have all these markups here, these clouds on this document. And if I wanted to kind of embed those into the document, almost in the sense of like, ink on a hard copy, then I would use the flatten tool here. So you just go to document, flatten. It'll give you some options here and what it is you want to flatten for the subjects and the types of things that are on here. You can say allow markup recovery or unflatten. Now this warning, this works probably 75% of the time, but what I'll typically do is if I'm flattening a document, I'll make a copy of it and then I'll flatten it and kind of add a underscore F on the file name of the flattened copy so that I always have that unflattened copy in case I need to go back and modify those markups for some reason. And you just hit flatten. Pretty quick process, and now all those markups aren't selectable and they're no longer showing up here in your markup list. And then the unflatten button is right below that as well. Any questions on any of the tools here in the document tab? Nope, okay. Everyone can still hear me all right?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Perfect, okay. The batch dropdown. Now the batch is going to be a lot of the same tools and things we've seen before, but it's going to be doing them to multiple documents at the same time. Now some of these tools have that batch function kind of built into it where you can reduce the file size on multiple documents at the same time. But for the ones that don't, you can go over here to batch. So if I wanted to do the headers and footers, or actually I think one that isn't in the original, in the built-in default tool, is the stamp. So if I wanted to apply a stamp to multiple documents at the same time, I can even control where on the document I want that to be positioned and then offset it in an XY coordinates from that position. Then I can do that here in the batch stamp. So this is most of the tools that we've seen before in terms of headers and footers and comparing documents, but there's a little bit more functionality in the batch in terms of controlling how many files you add to that process that you want to do. Now another thing too that we didn't go over, but the batch summary, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is located here as well. Print, if you want to print multiple documents at the same time, instead of opening up every one of those documents, you can go to batch print and then select all the PDFs that you want to print at the same time. Tools. Now this is going to be where your tools and stamps and markups and all these things are at. Now we tried to put all the most useful ones in terms of markups and stamps and things outside of this dropdown, so you never have to go inside here. They're going to be either in the quick access toolbar over here, or they'll be in one of your tool chests over here. Window. So you can do a couple different things in the window here in terms of how the graphical user interface is displayed. You can go into a presentation mode, which is kind of like PowerPoint. So now I can, if I had multiple pages for this document here, I can kind of display it almost like a PowerPoint. So instead of having to copy and paste pages of your PDF into a PowerPoint presentation, you can go through this as if it was a PowerPoint presentation. And the help button up here, this is where you're going to find, checking for updates, license information, technical support. There's a lot of good information in these tabs here if you ever need any help with anything. Any questions on any of these drop-down buttons we went through here? Nope. Okay. All right. So moving on here, let's go to the quick access toolbars. These are just common tools. The most, probably I say common in the sense that the ones that would get used the most on a daily basis in our industry. And these are customizable. You can add or remove or delete these if you wanted to, but just kind of go on top to bottom here. This first one is just your normal text box. Next one here is going to be a highlighter, which will grab text, or if you hold on the control button, then you can do a more of a manual kind of highlighting thing here. Pen tool, normal pen tool you would normally see. Cloud plus tool, this is going to be a tool where it has a cloud that you want to cloud something and then a call out box tied to it. So if I wanted to bring my attention or someone's attention to this dimension here, I simply select the area that I want to cloud and then click over to the side here to place my call out box and say whatever I want to say. And then you can resize like the leader, move it around, or do whatever you want to that one there. The cloud tool itself, this is just a regular cloud tool with nothing tied to it. If you want to just put a normal cloud around something. Call out, this is one you're probably more familiar with from Adobe, just an arrow call out with a text box tied to it. Stamps, so these are where the stamps are going to be located, but a lot of these are also going to be in your tool chest over here for quick access, because coming over here to the stamp button can kind of be a pain, especially if you have a lot of stuff to find your stamps. Image, if you want to insert an image to a PDF here, you just click on this little button here and you navigate to whatever image you want to bring into your document, hit open, and I'll just put it right there. And you can resize it accordingly. And then the snapshot tool, we already went over this earlier, but again, real quick, it's like a virtual snapshot of your content, and it'll recognize the line work content in here as well. So I can just hit snapshot, and then I'll paste that, Control V, and you can change, if you wanted to change like the background so it wasn't clear, you could change the fill to like a white color, and then add a line weight to it. So now it's kind of on top of whatever content is behind it. Line tool, just click an end or the start point, end point of a line, pretty normal. Arrow tool, arc tool, polyline tool. It's going to be one where you can just create a line that has multiple segments on it and double click to end. Rectangle, oval, I mean, all these are pretty common tools here. The polygon tool is going to be one where you have an enclosed polygon shape, and then again, double click to end and close that shape. Dimension tools, this is one that I'll use. This isn't measuring or taking the actual dimension of the page. If you wanted to do that, you have to use a measure tool. This is kind of a dumb in the sense that it's not looking at information on the page, but it's kind of a graphical representation of a dimension. So if I just wanted to say something from here to say here, whatever it is, then I can put that in there. And then you can grab this handle and kind of move things around if you need to. Polygon, sketch to scale, and all these little orange looking icons down here are sketch to scale tools. Now sketch to scale tools are, I kind of refer to them as PDF CAD or CAD PDF, in the sense that if I had a document here, so I'll go back to this one here where I had a snapshot, excuse me, a snapshot that I took and I went just paste it on a blank document, and I want to make a quick sketch here, and I want to sketch to scale, and I don't feel like going into AutoCAD or something to make that sketch. I can go in here, go into the measure tool, and I'm going to store the scale on the page. I'm going to calibrate the scale, and I'm going to say this is 7'6", and notice I can't grab anything. That's because I don't have my snaps turned on. So once I turn those snaps on, I can snap to that point and say that it's 7.5 feet. And now when I go and use these sketch tools, say I wanted to draw a line that was 4 foot exactly, then I can just draw that line like that, and it's almost like you're entering dimensions and values into AutoCAD. So that's a 4 foot line exactly right there, as compared to the scale of this particular drawing. So you can do quick, accurate drawings to scale in here if you wanted to, using those sketch to scale tools. And that was just a polyline sketch. That's if you just wanted to make a line, and you could do the same things with polygons and squares and circles and things like that. Any questions on these quick access toolbars over here? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on down to the markup list here. Now, the markup list is what I consider to be one of Bluebeam's probably most powerful tools. And what you can kind of compare it to is almost like it's set up like an Excel file where you have rows and columns of data. Mainly this, in terms of display, you have columns of different data here. And all these columns can be customized to however you want them to. We do have them set up specifically with the profile that'll be delivered, installed on everyone's computers there to look similar to this, with the most useful information, at least in our eyes as of now, displayed. But now this is a document here where I have, it was a QC review, and so I have a lot of yellow highlights indicating things are okay for our process, and different comments that say, for saying things need to be fixed. Now, the powerful feature of this markup list here, which is massive, there's a lot of comments in this particular review here, and if I wanted to only see certain markups or certain comments, I can filter and find those comments with filters, just the way I would filter things in Microsoft Excel. Now, to do that, you just go ahead and click on this filter button, and now you notice the filter symbol appears on the right side of every single column. Now, if the first thing I want to do is filter and find only markups that have the subject of, say, step 2 revision needed. In this case, that was the subject of the comment or the markup tools that the reviewer used. And I know that those are the things that I need to go look at. So I can just go ahead and click on that and notice what happens to all the other content, like those yellow highlights, that don't fall under that filter. So I click OK, and all that content actually grays out. Now it's still there, it's still selectable, but you can't do anything with it. It's kind of locked temporarily. It doesn't delete it or anything, it just kind of hides it and locks it so you can't move it or mess with it. But what that does is that makes all of the content graphically that you don't care about disappear, and also here in the markup list. So all those yellow, I'll turn it off real quick here so you can see all those step 2 OKs when I turn that filter on disappear. So now I'm only seeing what I want to see here. And you can tell that a filter has been applied to a column by this orange highlighted bar on top of the column here. Now all these other columns don't have any orange on the top, so I know that there's no filters on those columns. And you can do multiple filters at once. So if I had, this subject here that was filtered by step 2 revision needed, and I wanted to look at only things that say had a status of a certain status. So I wanted to find the comments that have a certain status, like step 3 agree. I can do that, and I can quickly find, oh, okay, there's only one comment on this entire document that has that particular status. And you can do it by creation, dates. So if I wanted only comments that were made on a certain date, on 9/3, then I can go in here, and now I have all the comments that were made on that specific date. So any column of information that's in here, you can filter by so that you can see whatever it is you want to see and quickly find whatever you want to find in terms of markups or comments on a document through this markup list here. Now this is a lot of data in this particular one here. This is a big QC with a lot of comments and things in it. So what I like to do, like I think I mentioned previously, is I'll just detach this markup list by clicking this blue button, grabbing it, and then I'll leave it on this monitor here because I can't show 2 monitors at once, but I'll take this screen, this markup list, and then drag it over to my other monitor if you have 2 monitors, and then make it full size so that I can just have all the screen real estate for the markup list here. Now, if you don't have 2 monitors, that's fine too. You can always click and drag that guy back down here, and then you can just kind of leave it maybe partially open so that you can look at the markups down or the comments down here while you're looking at the document up here. Now you can do things like sorting in the markup list right now. By default, it's sorting by the page number. So the comments are displayed in the markup list based on the order in which they appear in the document in terms of pages. And you can tell this little arrow here is the sorting indicator. So if I were to sort by date instead, this little arrow here indicates that it's now sorting by date. And if you want to clear all your filters, you can just go to the drop down next to the filter button, hit clear all. You can do really custom ones if you wanted to. So if you had, if you didn't want to just make a filter based on one thing, you could do a custom one, and I could say, show me all comments that equal, step 4 revision made, or if they equal step 2 revision needed, and then hit OK. So now that filter is filtering by 2 things instead of just one thing. Any questions on the markup list down here? No? Okay, so one other thing we can chat about on the markup list here is this summary tool. So let's see, I'll go find another document that's a little bit better to show this with, but the PDF summary is actually going to be a report that you can create that summarizes all the comments in a PDF document here. So typically in the past, this was traditionally done like in terms of like a review. You'd have comments and you have to maintain or track those comments in some kind of Excel log or some kind of document that's separate from this file. But with this PDF summary, what it'll do is it'll create that summary report for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the PDF summary here, and this can be exported to a CSV file, which is Excel, or a PDF file. Hit summary here, and all these tools in terms of sorting and filtering, all these things can all be saved to a configuration file, which again, that's one of the things that'll be delivered to everybody, as well as a template for the report itself. So I already have all these files, all the settings in here. Actually, I'll go ahead and load the configuration file one more time just to make sure that everything's in there. And then I'll go ahead and hit OK. So what this is going to do is go and make a report of all the comments that were in this document and put them in a nice kind of format for me, and then make hyperlinks back to that original comment in the document. So this report, if you look over here in the thumbnails tab, it got inserted because I told it to. It got inserted in the back of that document here. So if I were to click on, zoom in here and look, this is all the information associated with that comment. And if I were to click on that comment right here in the little thumbnail, it actually jumps me right to that where that comment's at in this document here. So this is the good way to keep track of and report on all your comments in some kind of a summary or fashion, and can take the place of some of those older methods of tracking or comments in a document. So any questions on that summary report or the markup list in general? No? Okay. Well, that's just about everything there is to know on Bluebeam. That first session we covered all those panel access tools over on the left here, and in this overview, we went over all the drop downs and the quick access tools and the markup list. So that kind of covers the whole extent of the user interface of Bluebeam. And if there aren't any other questions, then go ahead and let everyone get to their lunch.
Hey, Steve, I got one question for you. It's kind of an odd question. I don't know if you ran into this. Every once in a while, we have documents where we try and put a text box or a markup with a leader, and we type in our comment, and then once we hit enter or get out of the text box, it changes the text font to wingdings and something unlegible. Have you ever ran into that?
So it looks correct when you are in the text box and you're typing what it is, but when you get out of it or click outside of it to finish placing it, you're saying it kind of changes text and things like that.
Correct.
I think I have it, but it was a long time ago, and I can't remember if it was the setting inside of Bluebeam or if it was some kind of setting in Windows in your computer. But if I recall correctly, I just called the technical support, Bluebeam's technical support, and they were able to identify it and fix it pretty quickly. Anything that's weird like that is seeming, not acting like it should, or seems like it's not acting like it should, don't hesitate to just pick up the phone and give them a call. Their support team's really good, probably one of the best out of any software vendor I've ever dealt with, in the sense that you get a person usually within a minute or two, and they're super quick, and they can remote into your computer and take a look if they need to.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate it, Steve.
Steve, I got one question too. Can you go into these stamps again?
Sure. Did you want to go into the stamps button over here?
Yes.
Okay.
Just click on it. How do you rearrange the order of the stamps? Can you rearrange them?
I believe they are going to be, I haven't tried that, but the way it looks like they're defaulted is just alphabetically. Now, if personally, I don't like going into here unless I have to. The only reason you would have to is if you're maybe applying stamps to multiple pages, or if you're just editing a stamp. But I like to take my stamps and actually put them in my toolboxes to make them easier to use, and then I can also drag them up here to my tools to make them a hotkey. So that way I can just use a keyboard shortcut to activate that stamp. And we have your profiles all set up to where at least the stamps that we've talked about delivering currently are all in there. So I have like these review stamps for utility systems. So if I were to go and place that stamp in here, it'll go in there and apply that stamp.
Now, just to follow up on that question, if we did want it situated in that stamp section in order that we wanted it, could we just put numbers in front of the name, and that would create it 1 through like 10, and the first 10 that you want there?
Yep, no,
would be numbers.
Yeah,
right?
that's a perfect example. So yeah, you could do 0, 1 dash, and then whatever's for your first stamp you want, and then 0, 2 dash, whatever stamp you wanted. So because all those stamps, if you were to look at them and scroll down to the bottom here, I think you click on Change Stamp Folder. This is actually going to be the folder where those stamps are located. So if I copy that, and you can't see them all now because it's not the way I'm just telling it what folder I want those stamps to be in. But if you leave them in the default spot and you were to navigate to that folder, this is where all those stamps are located here. So you can go in here into this folder and then do what you were talking about, and that way that you can, kind of manage the order in which they appear in that stamps icon over here. All right, any last questions?
Nope. I think we're good. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, yeah, thank you everybody for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Yep.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good holiday.
Yep, you too.